Good morning, everyone. This is Olga Adler from Austin Businesswoman. And today, this beautiful Sunday, we're going to talk about an important topic, the topic of healing and personal growth. We're going to talk about how healing is important for our life, for our relationships, for our career, how we can achieve healing as fast as possible, and how we can protect our inner self and people who surround us from trauma and from having to heal again. I have amazing panelists today, and I can't wait to introduce them. The first one is Kayla Flor Anders. Hi, Kay. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, Olga. Thanks for having me.
Could you tell us a little bit about what you do?
Sure, I'm the creative director at LaFleur Anders and Company. And my team and I normally work with women in heart centered businesses from like doulas and coaches and anyone who uses their hearts on a daily basis in their business. And we create content with them, relatable content, inspirational content. We collaborate together. And we just recently opened a publishing wing of that business, and it's called Chestnut Publishing House. So we're super excited about that.
Oh, congratulations.
Thank you.
Can't wait to hear more about it. Our next panelist is Slaja Redna. Hi, Slaja.
Hi everyone. I'm super excited to be here with you. So I'm a psychotherapist and a life coach. In my psychotherapy business, I mainly work with women who have complex trauma, who want to create a healthier self-image, a lot of overthinking, and in my coaching business, I work with high achievers and people who maybe been through some therapy and they want to kind of get to that next level who are really interested in personal growth. Um, Most of my clients really want to build self-trust and they want to thrive. And that's kind of how I help.
Thanks for joining us and for what you do every day. Our next guest is Anastasia Branson. Thank you for joining
Hello,
us.
everyone, and it's great to be here with you. I'm an accountant, but I have another calling. I help women who are victims of domestic violence, and I've done it for many years. But a couple of years ago, kind of started on grander scale. We created a Facebook group for Russian-speaking women in Texas, and I also opened my own nonprofit. And we're doing great things for helping women, sharing information, opened a hotline, collecting donations, and helping some women with food when it's needed. So a lot of things are happening, and right now I'm working actually worldwide with different women activists to put together a website for Russian-speaking women, so they have information for domestic violence in every state. So that's our next
Mhm.
big project.
It's a beautiful cause. Thank you for doing this. Our next guest is Viviani Pearson. Hi,
Hello,
Vivi.
everyone. Hey, Olga. Thank you for having me on this panel. And my name is Viviani Pearson. I am an activist and a philanthropist at heart. You see the subtitle say VNP Foundation. That is a foundation that was created. And what I like to say is I turn my pain into purpose, right? So I always like to say what you grow through what you go through. And for me, through my past trauma, I created this platform along with my therapist, letting others know that your past doesn't necessarily have to be your future. And you don't have to stay in that mentality that you can't get through it. But having the right tools and resources will allow you to move forward. On the regular basis, I am a loan officer. I do specialize in divorce mortgage and again, turning the pain into purpose. I had that experience and I realized that I wanted to advocate and be there for other people and guide them through that journey as well. I do have two small other businesses. I'm a cosmetic creator and a fitness advocate as well.
Thank you for joining us, and thank you for the many missions that you're on. And our next guest, the last but not the least, is Sharon Borjas. Hi, Sharon. Am I
I
pronouncing your last name correctly?
Yeah, it's perfect. So
I've known Sharon for many years, but I never asked her about her last name.
it's okay. Most
Talk a
people
little bit
pronounce it
about
right.
yourself.
Oh,
Good.
okay. So I'm an energy work practitioner, which I'm finding most people know energy work through Reiki. And what I do isn't Reiki training, but it's similar in that essentially I would describe it as a way to kind of overcome for a moment those any kind of just to get beyond your everyday pattern of feeling and thinking and just have this experience of more oneness and wholeness inside of yourself.
That's a beautiful mission. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. And let's dive in. Let's talk about healing. I mean, I think the first question we should ask, what is healing and personal growth? How can we define them? I would ask Kay to answer this question first because she's a wordsmith. She is good with concepts and words, and I'm sure she can find the best definition for it.
Healing and personal growth, I'll take it from my experience because I just recently went through a growth spurt, if you will, in the past 2 years. And I will say for me, specifically in the area of relationships, sometimes, which is so crazy, you will realize as you're getting older that there are areas that are still triggers for you, which to me indicates that that's an opportunity for you to heal, but it does not feel good at all. And I see why most people, especially growing up, were just very accepting of where they were. This is just me because healing feels horrible, right? In the physical sense too, right? When you've been burned or have some type of scar, you have to go through that process. So healing and personal growth, that was kind of the long way around. But it's a process. That's what it is. It's coming from where you are broken and hurt and it's painful and just allowing yourself to go through that process to wholeness. And in the process of that, the hope is that as you're healing, you grow because as Vivi said, right, you grow through what you go through. So in that process of healing, I think that's where you grow and that's where the personal growth comes from. It's a process.
Hmm. I completely agree. And I think many of us went through this process in so many ways, so many times in our lives. So nobody is spared. I actually wanted to ask Sladia, as a
Mhm.
mental health professional, is there some expert definition of healing? Is it even a term that's used in psychology?
Yeah, when I think of healing, we use that term a lot, and I think mostly when we talk about healing, at least for me, I think of healing from trauma, healing from really difficult experiences. And a lot of people think that trauma is maybe just one event, something really difficult that happened or something really tragic. But it's really a lot of the events that maybe don't happen, like having love, having your needs met as a child, feeling special, feeling supported. So a lot of those things are actually what causes complex trauma. So not having that foundation of being seen and being supported in all ways that we have to be supported as kids. So when I think of healing, I think of kind of coming to that place where we really feel like we're adults, responding from this really authentic adult place when we feel like we're in charge of our lives, where we kind of feel like ourselves instead of when we're hurt, when we have this trauma, we usually adapt, and we adapt in some ways that's not who we are. We kind of like learn who we need to be to deserve love or to be successful. Um, so when I think of healing, I really think of that becoming that person that you were meant to be, like your full self, feeling good in your body, having a good relationship with yourself, almost like moving to a life from this like adult place, this really authentic place. So that's what I think of. And kind of like to your question, like we use it, but I usually think of like healing from trauma, healing from difficult experiences. And then thriving is kind of like when we come to this balance, then we can go into this personal growth, and thriving instead of just.
If I can add something, I definitely agree with you, ladies. But from experiences, and again, I'm not the expert. However, I know we're on a mission with the nonprofit, and we're exposed, and I do a lot of whether that's one-on-one coaching. I like to say purpose-driven coach, right? Allowing you to identify some of these things. When I think of healing, I agree with Kay. It's not easy, right? And I like to use the terminology of raw. And when I do talk to my ladies, because I deal with a lot of women in terms of the trauma aspect, yes, it's not even, and I have to be wise the way that I say this, because when I initially created the nonprofit, the focus was for veterans, because I'm a veteran. And one of my experiences in the military was traumatic, right? And so the heartbeat and the pulse of the nonprofit was to focus on PTSD. And as I continue to get in the community and, talk and reach out to other women, I realized that this wasn't just a military thing, right? We tend to not like to put a label on something, in our society, just because we don't want to be identified as, oh, something's wrong with me. So I had to unveil that stigma of what PTSD looks like. And it's not necessarily just for military personnel. Just like you mentioned, Slaja, like it's a traumatic event and it can stem from different areas in our life, whether that's childhood, whether that was an abuse, or whether that was something that triggered. But I like to think of it as a series of events, right? That pile up, and something can happen, but we didn't realize how our past impacted that situation, right? So when I like to say, I like to just get really blunt and be like, let's get naked, right? You have to see yourself as you are, perfectly imperfect, the scars, the hurt, the imperfections, you name it. And that's when the true beginning, the start of healing takes place. It's being completely vulnerable, being completely raw and open, right? I think awareness is always one of the things that there's certain steps. I was like, the awareness has to be there. If you really want to heal, you need to be able to identify it and be okay with the person that's looking in the mirror and be like, there's a problem. And how do I fix it? Or one, am I aware of it? And that's when the true healing process, honestly, and I can speak from experience, that's where it starts.
I really like that you ladies said, all of you, about how healing is difficult and most often painful. And I really like what Saja said about trauma being events that never happened, like being loved by your parents sometimes, or not having someone to trust. Those are events that cause trauma in adult life later on. And I frequently meet with women who were abused as children, and then those events keep reoccurring in adult life. And for me, healing has to do with resilience. It's like a painful stretching of the band that bounces back. It hurts, but it bounces back. Whatever is done to us, whatever happens to us, we kind of come to our original shape, and acceptance of ourselves, is important in this. So I totally agree with Vivi as well, is that, to look at yourself in the mirror and kind of accept yourself and be happy with who you are. It's not always easy because you have to, I found I had to accept that I'm not perfect. I'm not the person I always wanted to be. I make mistakes. Sometimes I'm awful. And accepting that kind of helped me to grow. And I wouldn't say become better because it's all relative, but at least help me to be stronger.
That part.
You made a good point, Anastasia, about resilience, and that I agree in that resilience, where it comes from, is finding a sense of meaning in life,
Yeah.
that such that the sense of meaning can actually carry you through any painful experience. I think that's where true healing lies.
I agree with that part because really I see it as, and ladies, I think we've all been through a healing journey. I mean, of some sort, right? It's like it's like peeling back layers of an onion. Just how many layers does an onion have, right? Forever, if you're not chopping it. So you're just constantly peeling back like this little part, and then you cry a little bit more, and then you just keep, pulling it back. But in my work as a wellness coach, even a mind body fitness coach, my message is always, but it's worth it. It's not going to feel good. It is going to be painful, and at some point in that, like on that journey, you're going to walk it alone because some things people can't walk with you. That's something that you have to go through by yourself, and there's a lesson in it, and it hurts and it feels lonely, but it's so necessary. And at the other end of that thing, you're just going to feel so much better and be such a better asset for the people in your life because you're not giving yourself everything that you need, so you certainly aren't giving it to them. And in our businesses, it's the same way. Like the more we work on ourselves, the more we go through the process, we're better for it. And then other people are better for it. But it hurts. I don't take the pain away from that, but it's necessary and it's
Yeah.
going to be okay.
And I want to piggyback because the first thing that came to mind when you said that was I tend to tell people that sometimes isolation puts you in a position for growth. And position and have the capacity in terms of the mindset to be okay with that, because when you're stretched like that, on the opposite side of that is restoration, is peace, is everything that you've been desiring for yourself, strength, right, the resilient aspect of your life, to know that you can in fact get through this, but you might have to take that journey alone, because it allows you to really reflect on what's happening and evolving within you.
Thank you for all those beautiful points. And I think we have so much stigma around healing and trauma. People don't talk about it because we are so we were taught to man up and just show our best face and pretend that we're not weak, we're not women who complain all the time. We don't have those weaknesses. And I wanted to ask you, I heard different schools of thought. There are people who believe that you can't jump into a new project, into a new relationship, into a business, into a career until you've healed from a previous trauma or something that had happened to you in the past. They said you need to start from the clean, clean blank slate. So you have to heal first and then start something new. While others say that you heal by doing, by growing something, by developing something new. So what's your idea? Maybe it's from personal experience, maybe it's from experience of your patients or customers or friends and family. Do you have to heal first before you start something new? Or can you start something new while you're still healing? Who would like to take that? I know it's a tough question. Who would like to contribute?
I can start. I think mainly you have to live life. You can't just stop life from happening. And I think that it's important that those experiences themselves are what teach you about yourself. So if you were to go live in a cave, you wouldn't, I don't know, that would be healing and helped you learn how to have relationships or work, be, have fulfilling work life or anything like that. So I think if you're not planning to live in a cave, then it's a good idea to continue living your life and heal as you go.
Mm-hmm.
I would say plant seeds in your brokenness. That continue to plant seeds because, like I mentioned earlier, turn your pain into purpose. I think it gives us a time to identify and have an overview of what's important to us, right? What we want to prioritize, whether that's our peace or understanding who we are as an individual. So I say continue to plant seeds in your pain or your trauma or I think the exploration of who you're becoming, right? Because it helps you figure out your why or at least hold on to it so that you are resilient to be able to move forward. So, and I don't know, I would say do something new, whether that's setting a goal for yourself. For me, I know physical fitness was an outlet, right? I was dedicated. Instead of I don't know, I'm just giving random numbers. Instead of 2 days a week, go 4 days a week. Give yourself a goal, right? And to exceed it because again, you're pulling yourself out of a hole of darkness, right? Because you don't want to dwell in that because that's when you start, in a sense, getting more depressed or feeling like you're alone, like you're not validated, no one can relate, or you start doubting yourself altogether. But surrounding yourself, getting out there, surrounding yourself with like minded people that will inspire you, motivate you, push you, challenge you. Is going to be key. So that's why I always say, in the midst of those, link arms with other people who are willing to see you, right? And that truly has your best interest in mind. So my answer to that is no, plant seeds, move forward, start something new, tap into your creativity, because I believe in those seasons, that's when we find we can easily tap into our greatness in those seasons. So yeah, that's my answer.
I actually want to have a little different observation here. Because I mean, I also deal with depression actually all my life. And the message that I feel is not, kind of being told most of the time is that it's okay to be depressed. It's okay to be afraid.
Mm-hmm.
It's okay to be broken. It's okay not to want to do anything or it's okay not to start any new projects if you don't have any energy for it. It's okay to just pause and take care of yourself.
Reset.
I mean, I get it, Vivi. Like for most people who are healthy, they can just tap into greatness. But
It
sometimes
requires work for
people
sure.
are so broken that there is no energy, there's nothing left, they feel, and I say it's okay. Just, embrace yourself, take care of yourself for a little while. It's okay not to start anything new until you heal. For some people, it's easier for them to start doing things. And that's how they get out of their hole. So I actually observed that for different people, there are different ways of how to approach. So
Mm-hmm.
there's no one correct way to do things.
Correct.
Like for me, I am a doer too. So if I start doing things, I focus on that, and then I kind of forget about my problems. But I started this kind of nonprofit when I felt like I was already healed, but then other things started to come up. So
Mm.
how can you actually know that you're already healed when you get started? You think you have, but then you haven't really, and because it's a process, like Kay said. So there are no clear guidelines of how to do this. There is no uh, kind of moment where you say, okay, I'm healed, I'm done. So does it mean you never get started doing anything? just something to think about.
No, I agree with you 100%. And even with Slaja, like she said, how the past can just impact us in the relevant time, like today, right? Again, I think healing is a continuous process,
Exactly.
but in
Mhm.
agreement with you saying that, yeah, sometimes you have to sit in it. That's the awareness key, right? When I say planting seeds, I'm not going to negate and understand, because just from my personal experience, oh, I sat in it. Six
Yes.
months of cognitive behavior therapy. Really, just like Kay say, pulling those layers. I kid you not, those were the hardest months of my life. And like
Mhm.
you said, Kay, getting on the opposite side of that has evolved me and made me the person that I am today, talking in this space, this mindset, and be able to, encourage, motivate, or empower other women. But it took work, right? Right? So sitting in it is great, but not applying the tools and resources that are made available to you to get through those things is another thing. But within that, within the cognitive behavioral therapy, I was learning. I was learning ways to approach or combat triggers, combat, when it seeped into whatever, my work, my interactions with my children, with my spouse. But I had to identify that first, right? I had to acknowledge it. There was days when I couldn't get out of bed, right?
Yes.
But you give yourself grace. And I always like to say, in healing, the number one thing you have to do is give yourself grace. Just like you said, we're not perfect. We don't want to do it, or we can't, muster up to even like, okay, I'm going to get up today and be motivated. And sometimes you just don't, you just can't. And so I agree with you in that space. But I also, as you're learning these things, I think you're getting stronger. Even though sometimes we don't want to identify with that because we're dwelling so much and we're sitting in the pocket of, oh, is it ever going to get better? Oh, but every time you show up for yourself, that's growth. Every time you acknowledge it and go to therapy or talk to someone or call a friend, that's actually you choosing to show up for yourself and wanting and having the desire to become better.
And
Yeah, one of the things I share. Oh, I'm sorry.
um,
Just want to say something. The one of the things, it's like a lag. One of the things I share with ladies all the time is to remember that you have your own formula. Everybody does,
Mm-hmm.
right?
yeah.
So what works for this person might not work for me, and we are constantly comparing ourselves to other people. I think social media makes it worse because I am proudly 44. And I remember a time when I was really, in my 20s, there was no social media. So it's either you saw it in front of you or you didn't. So one of the biggest things to remember when you're going through the healing process is to find your own formula.
Mm-hmm.
So working out may be someone's release, which it is for me too. Like I love hiking, I love being out in nature. Whereas somebody is like, well, I try that and that's not for me. That's great. Then you find your thing. Maybe
Yeah.
you're in a season where with formulas we're subtracting, adding, multiplying, dividing, right? So that rest that y'all talk about, that time where you do nothing and you sit in it. I love how you said, VV, that time you're doing work. It's like active rest, right? You're resting, but you're still active in your healing. That means you're taking away some things. Maybe you're not chilling with people as much as you used to because you need some time alone. Maybe
Yeah.
you stop doing this particular activity, but you replace it with something else. So the key to healing for me, in my experience, especially the growth spurt that I took, that I had like last year, was really finding what works for me and not comparing myself, my journey, my story um, to someone else's, because what works for them is wonderful, but what works for me is also good. And that all of those things from the subtracting to the adding equals up to my wholeness and what that looks like for me. And
Mm-hmm.
so that's one of the things I want to encourage, and I constantly say this, and I love the graces you grow. That is I'm constantly saying to women, okay, that's fine, but it's gonna take some time, just like it took to ravel that thing up, to unravel it. It's gonna take some time. You have to give yourself grace, take the pressure off, not be so hard on yourself, because then we like kind of panic and then stop or like deter. or something. But if you give yourself grace as you're growing through this new thing you're learning, these new tools, this cognitive behavior therapy, you're working out for the first time, or whatever it is, journaling, just take a breath and give yourself some grace as you grow, for sure.
Yeah, actually, you said exactly what I was going to say about us, not comparing ourselves with other people. And you're right. On the social media, we see people who are always happy. It's not very popular to show people sitting in the dark home, mess all around because, mess at home happens when you have trauma, and all their dirty dishes and not being able to get up or even take a shower. People don't take pictures when they're like that. Okay. They don't post this, but I mean, honestly, a lot of us go through this. A lot of people are in this right now. A lot of people are struggling. And if we know those people closely, we might learn some of those things. But on social media, everybody is just extremely happy. And if they're miserable, they come out only when they achieve some kind of success. So everybody talks about their successes and how they overcame things, and nobody really talks about what kind of hole they're in for how long. Or if they were to therapy, they say, okay, I went to therapy for a year and now I'm fine. Listen, I've been to therapy for many years and I'm not fine, okay? So, um, it's everyone has their own pace, you know, everyone has their own path. It's okay not to be okay. It's okay to need help. And so healing, it is about pain. It is about pain. It's not about avoiding the pain, how, society teaches us. Do this and you will not feel any pain. I say it's okay to feel the pain.
Mhm.
Even if it hurts, sometimes it hurts to to kind of get off drugs to become healthy. Sometimes it hurts to get away from a toxic person and become less codependent. Um, there are a lot of pain in life. Okay, there's a lot of pain, and we don't see it on social media that much.
That's true. And it's okay to have the expectation of maybe not being completely fixed again, because we're not cars. You can just replace our soul
Okay.
with something new and fresh and evergreen. So it's okay to know that these scars are going to stay with us. It's like a person who's losing a limb. They know they might not, they will probably never be the same again. And you just learn to live with it. I actually wanted to ask Slaja because
Mhm.
I'm sure in your work you can't, like, your first instincts as a person might be one thing, but then the practice as an expert, as a professional, are different things. So how do you approach people who come to you with trauma and they're seeking help with healing? Is there some kind of, as we say, formula that you apply to every patient, or is it more of you have to know the whole picture first before you can strategize?
Well, I love what everyone shared, and I feel like this common answer was really finding your own way, because there is no one way that's going to apply to everyone. So, kind of like even to your question about whether we heal on our own, and then we kind of come back to relationships, and I love what Sharon said about we don't go in a cave and then we heal and then we come back perfect to society, to our life. It just that life keeps happening. Um, so I think it's also something important to keep in mind that we get hurt in relationships. So we also heal in relationships, in how we approach life and how we come, to be with other people. So I don't have any one formula. That might be disappointing to hear, but I think it's really important, kind of like to be honest with yourself, and like Vivi said, like having that awareness, like what's really not working here? Like, where do I keep kind of stumbling? What am I doing that's just no longer working for me? Kind of what are those patterns that I keep repeating, even though I feel like they're hurting me? And I think it's really important to see what is our role in our own suffering. And of course, as kids, we didn't have that choice. We did a lot of things that we had to adapt, but then also realizing that now as adults, we're not blaming anyone, but we have that responsibility to take care of ourselves. So I really like to start with that, like what's not working. And of course, when people come to therapy, they're not always ready to make a change. So everybody's in a different place. Somebody comes to therapy after they did a lot of work on their own, and they keep kind of stumbling in these same places. Sometimes people come for the first time when they're like in the midst of it, so it's really difficult, and it's just about surviving, just getting through to the next day. So really, there is no really formula. I like to see a person as they come, and we just work with where they are in that moment, whatever that is for them. And it's also, at least for me, really important to check in what is it that they're really wanting for themselves, and then keep looking into these obstacles that get in the way of that, whatever that is for them.
Mhm.
That's good, Slaja.
And
I like that.
speaking of obstacles, what things from inside or outside of us are real obstacles for healing and growth? Can someone talk to that point?
I would
Kate?
say mindset.
Oh,
Go
yeah,
ahead,
go
Kate.
ahead, Viv.
I would definitely say, at least the first thing that comes to my mind is mindset, right? And that I think that falls in line with the whole awareness. You have to identify that first. You know, you can be surrounded by a room full of 100 people, and if you're thinking that you're not worthy, or you think that something's wrong with you, that you think that whatever inclination that you want to put onto yourself or project onto yourself, if your mind is not in the right place, that's a huge obstacle for you to move forward in any, I personally believe, in any aspect of your life. And so you start there, you start identifying, and then you do the work. Um, I don't know. In short answer, that's it for me. I would definitely say mindset is a huge one for me.
I agree with that. I think mindset, and I would add to that, because really that's what I discovered was really my problem. It wasn't so much of the things that were around me; it was my thought process.
Yeah.
I think in addition to that too, I would say make sure that your mindset is intact, but don't forget about your heart. Because I
Mm,
think we um, we focus so much on how we think, and you read that everywhere. Have positive thoughts, think this, whatever, and at the same time, we neglect the matter of our heart. Like, where is your heart right now? Because as we get hurt, it's easier for your heart to be affected, right? It's not just how you think. But I had to start with my mindset. That was a huge thing for me, the mindset part. But then I was so governed by my emotions, which emotional intelligence saved my life and everybody else's too. Because I was just like on the edge of So, but diving into emotional intelligence made me really think about, okay, what is the condition of my heart? Am I getting harder in this area? Am I too sensitive in this area? So mindset first, and then I would say, but don't forget about your heart.
yeah. Make sure that they're in alignment, right?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
Mhm.
I like that.
I totally agree with that. For me, mindset is kind of also internal dialogue that we have with ourselves.
Hmm.
It's like constant narrative we have. It has to do with expectations from others, and expectations from ourselves. I notice that women frequently try to do everything. They are trying to be kind, helpful, compassionate, help everyone, to be there for everyone. And the expectation is that other people are going to do the same for you. Um, so, kind of starting to realize maybe that it's not always the case, and most of the time it is not. So kind of adjusting your expectation has a lot to do with healing and growth. So for inner dialogue, I might say that we all have thoughts where we kind of chastise ourselves when we put ourselves down. And it's a long, long process to kind of turn around those thoughts. They might not go away completely, but instead of kind of saying, oh, I suck at this, I learned to say, well, I'm learning how to do this. And
Be nicer to yourself.
yeah, kind of talk to yourself like you are a child, and like talk to your inner child, encourage yourself. Sometimes I call myself by my own name and I talk to myself, and no, it's not being crazy. It's perfectly normal to say nice things to yourself versus constantly having this record playing in your head that, oh, you'll never achieve anything, you will never amount to anything, it will never happen to you. Just to kind of start rewinding and saying, I will try and I will do my best. And it might work or it might not work, but I will do what I can. Kind of not making it like 100% positive, because that doesn't always feel true. Like, I'm worthy, I'm going to be a queen. Yeah, I don't feel it, but I say, okay, I'll do my best. I do what I can. That's what I feel is true to me. And that's kind of one of the huge obstacles to change inner dialogue and expectation that people will take care of you, because they won't
Mm-hmm.
most of the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to
Uh,
add something, if that's okay.
Yeah.
I think,
of course.
yeah, one of the major, or probably the most major obstacle to healing is just simply what we're not aware of about ourselves. And just because we have such a large portion of ourselves that is unconscious, and it's always going to be, there's always going to be a huge portion that's unconscious. We'll never know all of ourselves, but I think that it is important to note that changing even just one thing can change the whole trajectory of our lives. So it's really meaningful to go through that process. But I think, yeah, as far as the what gets in our way is just that we don't know what we don't know.
Mm-hmm. Or giving up on even the baby steps because we're afraid that we're not going to be successful. Yeah, I completely agree with that. And let's talk about the success stories. Do you have any story in your life and the life of a loved one, or maybe your client, your patient, where they successfully healed and where they achieved something that they thought they were never capable of achieving? And I'm not asking to disclose any details if you're not comfortable with that, but just saying, yes, there was a story in my life or in someone else's life that inspired me and showed me that it is possible. Who would like to share? Everyone. Yay.
I'll jump in. I think for me,
Okay.
it's a constant, interaction with different women, and of course, I can give a example with clients as well. But with the women, I don't know if it's one of the things that I don't. I always like to say it's my return on investment, right? I think when you're doing the work of your heart, like something that you believe that's your purpose, for me is when I see someone thrive. For me is when I see someone get on the other side of whatever that, like we just talked about, that was holding them back. And when I get those calls that are like, thank you, that the chat that we had last week, shift my mindset, and I started applying XYZ, and look at where I am now. Look at what I'm doing. Look at what I'm attracting. I just have to sometimes just sit there and be like, I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing, right? Like, this is my purpose. And for me, that's my return on investment. because I believe my dash is to serve others. I know that's my calling. Sometimes it's not grand, right? Sometimes, people think it's not luxurious in the sense of like lucrative in terms of monetary. But for me, that's a luxury in terms of me impacting someone, so that they can see the best version of themselves and they can hold on to that and know that, yeah, I can get through this, or on the opposite side is everything that I ever desired. But the key thing for me in those situations is knowing that sometimes we just have to be an ear, because when people are in those seasons, they, and I think Saja kind of mentioned it a little earlier, it's like they don't believe that they're seen. They don't believe that people will validate or hear them. And for someone to just sit there and do those things can change the trajectory, just like Sharon said, identifying the subconscious or non-conscious mindsets and things that's taking place. It's just like, and half the time they're answering their own questions, or and identifying their own problems in those seasons. But when I just sit there and listen, and put my little gems in there every now and then, it's beautiful to watch. It's beautiful to see that, and but I think to see them smile, because a lot of them lose their sense of happiness in those seasons, and that affects their why. But when they grab onto that, they identify it and continue to move forward. For me, that's one of the most impactful results for me.
Yeah, I guess in industry of domestic violence work, it's kind of difficult sometimes to see success stories, because what is success? A woman left her abusive husband, but she's struggling financially. She's going through child support services, visiting her all the time. She's going through divorce. I mean, is it success, really? That her, life actually worsened, but she is almost free, but she's not quite free, because she has children and she has to talk to her abuser anyway for the rest of her life, most of the time. So I don't focus on I guess big successes. I focus on the kind of success is when they call for help. Success is when they want more for themselves, for their children. Success are the kind of small things that I try to see and be grateful for, that are good in their life. They have money for rent, that's success. They found good school for their children, that's success. So yes, I mean, yes, there are big successes, like women leaving, finding good life for themselves, building new businesses, being grateful. It's all happening, but it doesn't happen for everyone and quickly. It takes sometimes really a long time. So I don't promise anyone, like, okay, if you leave, the abuse, life is going to be better for you. No, we don't make those promises. I'm starting, you're going to start building a new life for yourself. You're going to start finding out who you really are. You're going to start healing, possibly. But first, you'll have to deal with a lot of difficult things. But is it still success if it doesn't feel good? Yeah, if it is it success, if it's really hard, yeah, it is. Is it success that it sucks? Yes. So I kind of try to define success in this wide way. So maybe it's not like, Cinderella's story. It's sometimes the opposite of that. But we define our successes in life, and that's where our strength is.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think
We're not
for
gonna
me,
get it. Yeah, go ahead, Kay.
the really quick, the success my success, because I feel the same way, like the women that I work with, I find so much joy in the feedback that I receive from the things that we do together, whether it's collaborating on a project or it's a webinar or those types of things. But I was always so focused on everybody else feeling good that I never really took into account that I should too. And so my biggest success story for myself was last year when I made a decision to stop everything I was doing and just spend time with my family and with myself. I literally, I know my friends were like, "What in the world is going on with you?" But I made the announcement. I'm like, the group thread that we have, I am going to be leaving. Like I need this time. I need a period to just get to know who I really am and not what I'm expected to be, not what I was told I was going to be, and just really go through this healing process of feeling rejected. A lot of childhood stuff I had to be willing to really dig deep into. Um, I would encourage anybody to do that when you feel that there's a period where you need to step back and what I call reset. Of course, we can't start life all the way over, but we can pause,
Yeah.
right? And say, okay, I need to press the pause button on this because I need to focus my attention on something else. That was a huge success for me because I realized so much about myself that last year I was like, I cannot believe I was accepting of these types of friendships. I cannot believe that I missed. In some instances, I missed the shade or like the little petty things said, but I think in a way I kind of overlooked them because I was so interested in not hurting their feelings by confronting it. But at the same time, I was getting hurt. That's my biggest success story because once I took that break from May to September of last year, I'm talking all family, um, all journaling, all me, all love movies, all going hiking, nothing business at all, not with my business. My husband's business we still did, but not with mine, where I was just pouring so much of myself into it. That was huge for me. That's my personal success story because once I stepped out of that, you talk about alignment and from pain to purpose, Vivi. It's like that period that I took to myself right when I was coming out of it. I started getting these opportunities to be included in a book, to open my own publishing. Like things just started falling. And believe it or not, from May to September, that's not when the healing process started. That's just the period in that journey where I had to be alone because I had to do that active rest thing. I had to sit in it. I had to go, okay, you cannot accept people talking to you this way. You cannot accept these types of friendships. This is not really your friend. Okay, that's a hard thing to grasp too sometimes when there's history. You know, family trauma, those types of things. So my biggest success story was being able to go from a place where my cup was rattling, well, the spoon was rattling in my cup. I was empty, and just pouring out to these women, giving them absolutely nothing. I thought I was, but I was running on fumes. Taking that break, really filling up my gas tank, and then coming back and then leading this project of women where this book that we wrote was so beautiful and it was only supposed to be a lead magnet, but the healing processes that started for them in this process and the feedback I got from that, biggest success of my life so far. That's like the foundation of everything that I do now rests on that. And it took for me to take care of myself.
That's beautiful. Yeah.
Thank
I think
you.
that's such a great point, Kay, that you're making. It's success is not always these like big moments, even healing, but even just like slowing down and asking yourself, how could I accept this? Like, why was I being in these friendships and wanting something else for ourselves? Yeah, I agree with that.
Because you're drained, right? And that's why I believe in holistic creativity. I talk a lot about creativity in my work, but when you're not paying attention to everything, like you're just focused on the relationships or you're just focused in this area, but when you take a look at your whole self and then you take a look at everything around you, you start to realize that either some things you missed or you purposely overlooked because you knew you would have to confront it and go through this whole process. But when you really take that pause, and does not matter how long it is, or just moments of pause each day to just really kind of look over everything and go, okay, I was tripping right there. Like I shouldn't have done that, or I shouldn't have went here. Okay, next time I know there's a lesson from that. So that in every day makes every day successful when you can stop and really take a pause and see what you can do different and learn. And then just do something differently for yourself the next day. There's success in every day, I think.
Yes, absolutely.
I agree. Small wins, right? I
Success is
always
not
say
defined
celebrate the
by.
small wins. You just getting up and showing up, that's successful. You know, you
Mhm.
like you said,
Yes.
being able to identify that I need a season to pause and I need to assess everything around me. That's a huge win to be again to be able to you had the awareness. And I always talk about awareness because I think that's
Mhm.
key, right? Because you had to realize something, this is not okay. My environment is
Mhm.
not okay. My orbit, my peace is not okay. I need to identify what's disrupting it. You know, I like to call distractions pollution when I talk. And so what's polluting your orbit? You know, but I think little things like that are, you know, wins for me as well. So wonderful points. I couldn't agree with you ladies more.
Yeah, and Vivi, I do think that awareness is like the major center of the healing. It's actually first step in healing, and but it's not just a step; it's a center of it. The awareness goes through the healing at every stage. You
The
become
heartbeat.
more and more aware, but it starts with awareness for sure, and
Yes.
possibly ends up with it.
Oh yeah, it's throughout the whole process, and I think Kay too. As Anastasia was talking, you mentioned love. You mentioned you're running on fume, right? I always tell people you can't. How can you give to others when your love tank is empty,
Mhm.
right? And so when you brought that up, I was like, ding, 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 ding. Like I just had this conversation less than it felt like 24 hours ago with a client. And I was just like, it's hard. You know how they tell you on the airlines, put your mask on first?
Hmm.
Put your mask on.
Mhm.
Because if you're
Hmm.
not okay, how do you expect anyone, any extension around you how can you provide for them? How can you give your best version of yourself? Because we could survive. You know, I always like to say I was the PhD of wearing a mask. I was on autopilot, right? I can become superwoman when I'm just on autopilot and just numb and just doing it and running on fuel.
Yeah.
But we get burned out. We get tired. It starts to seep in other areas of our lives that we like, whoa. And then when it starts falling apart, that's when we're like, when did it all happen? But again, not identifying these things and becoming aware of them is detrimental to our overall desire of greatness, happiness, success, or just peace. So I think, you know, you identifying that was huge. I know I had my season in that, and I came out on the other side of it, I say wiser, right? Because I'm
Hmm.
very mindful when I say resilient, strong, and because I know for me, healing is a continuous process.
Yeah.
And I had to learn that through therapy, right? That, you know, every day is a day for progress. And sometimes little things, if we might not even think about it. Something will trigger us, and you don't even know it. And you're like, oh, why do I feel like that? Or why did that energy shift? Right? So it's continuously being aware of who you are and identifying things that, again, like Miss Cindy say, that might trigger you or affect you. But that awareness takes place throughout your entire journey. In fact, it heightens your awareness, right? When you're healing, your awareness monitor is on point. Mine's go ding 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 ding. I excuse myself sometimes like a church. I don't go maybe I'm like, oh, this is not a space for me. Thank you. It's been great. I have to excuse myself because one thing that I value is my peace and energy is everything for me. And so I can identify that, but I wasn't able to when I wasn't on my journey of healing and I didn't go through that. because I was just on autopilot, numb, right? And not being able to identify, just like you said, oh, someone was treating me that way, or they said this comment, but it affected me, but I wasn't ready to identify it or face it or address it. But now that my awareness monitor is on, okay, that doesn't sit well with me. Granted, do we want to have an adult conversation about it and evolve on it? Or do you think, because sometimes growth is um, walking away from something and not even needing validation or needing an explanation or, it's just, I choose peace. There's a lot of part in that, and we can evolve or expand on it. But we've brought so many great points, and I hope our audience, can take away what feeds them, right? Because this is a lot of information, a lot of perspectives, and a lot of strategies or formulas. But just like Kay said in the beginning, you have to do what's good for you. Because I know my journey was a roller coaster, right? I had to go in my toolbox and look at all the different resources that I've been exposed to and figure out which one applied to me the best, which one can I use to move forward or cling on to when I'm having an episode or an experience that rattles my heartbeat, or increase my heart rate. And I'm just like, okay, this works for me. Let me apply it. So again, this is amazing. You ladies had amazing and valid points.
Yeah, thank you for sharing all those points. And yes, maybe some people would be a little disappointed that we didn't provide them with a formula because there is no formula that fits all. But what we learned is sometimes not knowing what you want or where you want to be is not the important point. Important point is knowing what you don't want, acknowledging that you need change, that you need to go somewhere, and knowing, as Anastasia pointed out, it might suck for you. Like, we're not telling you that you're gonna come out of it the biggest glorious winner or life is gonna be 100% better. No, but we want change. We are ready to make change because we have hope that it's gonna be better, and that's what it takes. And listening to yourself and understanding that your path is unique. And of course, we can't fit all of our advice in one webinar. And I'm sure every panelist would love to talk to people if they reach out to you to ask for advice, because I guarantee that every single person of this panel has been through healing and they know what they're talking about. Um, I would like to ask our panelists to give their final thought or maybe a wish or maybe a tip of the day for everyone who's now going through something and wants to achieve healing. I'd like to start with Kate.
I think my advice would be to start the journey. Um, Awareness, acceptance, acknowledgement, not being afraid to be alone, making sure you extend yourself grace, being active in your time of rest, and knowing that you deserve it. Like, you deserve it. You deserve to be free from these things that have been holding you hostage, and in bondage, so that you can't move in different areas of your life, whether it's in relationships, in your career, in your business, in your creativity. You deserve it. So, starting with the mindset, like we talked about before, starting with that, I deserve this. Whatever that journey is, it's going to be difficult. But you know what? There are periods, and I'll end with this, in your journey where you have to be alone. But I guarantee you that along this journey of healing, you will start to attract people, the people who are set out for you anyway. It's a part of their purpose to meet you somewhere on that journey. They will start to come. You will get the support that you're lacking. It will happen, but don't be afraid to take the first step into this painful but beautiful and necessary process for you to get where you deserve to be, where you're destined to be.
I can add some.
Painful
I
before.
would really like to say to listen to oneself, because I think a lot of times we know we have these signs, we have these little clues that something's not working, that we're not fully living our life. And I think our whole life we're almost we kind of learned how to disconnect from that. We don't learn to listen to our intuition, and we always look for these answers outside of ourselves. So the more we can kind of just give ourselves that time and really hear if there is something that we want to be different, if there is some kind of desire calling us to kind of tune into that and to really listen to that, and just starting wherever you are, and it's totally okay. And kind of like everyone said, it's gonna get worse before it gets better, because a lot of times we are meeting ourselves, our real selves, for the first time, and that's not always fun. It's really painful, but then there's a lot of great things on the other side. So yeah, that would be my tip.
I guess we're taking turns. So I will continue. I would say to all women who are listening, it's okay to feel. I mean, our life is built this way that we're not supposed to show our emotions. Our life is kind of built that we're supposed to be professional all the time, cool headed, analytical. We're not supposed to say how we feel. We're not supposed to say when we're hurt or when we're upset or when we're in pain. Um, yes, there is a place and time for everything. I do agree. But give yourself time to really feel. There's no such thing as feeling too much. And I know some women feel like, okay, if I open this door, I will not be able to control my feelings at all. And I'm going to cry all over the place. Which I say, well, so what's wrong with that? I've been myself. Um, I mean, there's no probably one place where I didn't cry in my life. I cried in restaurants, in the movies. I cried in the park. I cried. I cried everywhere when I needed to cry. Okay. And there's nothing wrong with it. You think like something terrible is going to happen if you cry at work. Nope. um, there's nothing wrong with feeling. It's okay to feel. It's okay to let yourself feel. And no, if you open the door, it's not going to affect every stage of your life. You're still going to find resources to be professional if you like. But when you get at home and you feel like you had a really tough day, feel that, encourage yourself, and support yourself. Um, it's okay to be feeling that way, and it's okay to feel.
I don't want to sound mundane, but I do want to, say I agree with everything that the ladies have said. So I don't necessarily need to repeat it. However, I do want to bring this up to surface because as I continue to hear all the panelists talk, it's like we're echoing something that's very similar, right? And I want to say this because within VMP Foundation, there's an extension called Broken into Purpose. And I want to talk about that just because, and to the audience, I was just, and Olga knows that I'm working on a few projects, and one of them is called Lemonade. It's going to be a conference this summer, and I'll present my analogy to the audience is life is going to throw us lemons, right? But our choices, our paths allows us to one create lemonade if we choose to, because at the end of the day when you're sipping on that, and I call the sipping process is reflection, right? You're being able to recognize, yeah, it was bitter when all those things were thrown at you, it was bitter. But as you're sipping on, your life journey or reflecting on your life's journey, it's bittersweet, right? It's just one of those things that you're like, man, I had to experience that to be where I am today. So I say, you know, yes, it hurts. Yes, it's hard. But sometimes we are, in fact, broken into purpose. And, and it is okay to allow yourself to feel. And, Kay, you brought up a huge point. I felt like you pretty much highlighted a speech that I did 2 years ago for International Women's Day when you mentioned awareness, acknowledgement, and etc. Like for me, that was one of the things that I told the audience. I said, you have to be able to be aware and look in that mirror and acknowledge, and then figure out the steps that's needed to get outside of your comfort zones, to stretch yourself, to become and evolve into the individual that you're looking to be. So sometimes in those seasons, it's okay to feel. I want you to feel, because when you feel, it gives you purpose. It lets you know that you're alive. It lets you know that you have emotions, and being able to identify those emotions are going to be key for you in that season. So understand within your brokenness that you are in fact beautiful, that you are in fact worthy. Sometimes we may not feel like it. That you are in fact, and I'm going to say it's just because of my faith, that you are a child of a king and you are destined for great things. And don't let the experiences that you go through define your path, because you, again, are important, you are loved, you are treasured, and people see you. And if anyone haven't told you today, and you're on this podcast, or this webinar, and you're listening to us, I see you, I hear you, and feel free, like Olga said, reach out to any of us if we can help guide or encourage you or just listen to you, and that be of assistance or an aid. I'm here for sure to do that for you. But just want to just leave you with this. Life is going to throw you so many lemons, but it's a choice. And, to want to create the lemonade, and squeeze it, because it's squeezing lemons. If you really think about it, it's hard. Sometimes it hurts. And
Mhm.
that's going through the process of growth and healing. Sometimes it hurts, but at the end of the day, it's bittersweet, because when you reflect on all your progress and everything that you've done, it's a beautiful thing to watch. But going through it is not easy. I won't sugarcoat that. But on the opposite side of that is restoration, it's peace, it's the good stuff. And I want that for you. And I'm just going to leave with that. Sharon?
Thanks so much, Vivi. That was beautiful. I want to uh, add that do whatever you can to find a sense of meaning in life, or to find what's meaningful for you. And sometimes that takes courage, to see what's meaningful, because it could mean that that what you're doing now isn't meaningful to you, and it can be hard to acknowledge that, depending on um, how caught up you are in what you're doing, and how much of your time in life it's taken, and how invested you are. So, but to me, it's always worth it to have the courage to look at what's actually meaningful to you, because in the end, that's what's going to help you get through those painful experiences and make them worth it. Because all the times in my life that I've really felt a sense of meaning, I've been so connected, so way more connected to my feelings than any other time. Like it's just been um, that because it just gives me the strength to make my feelings be allowed to be there. I mean, really just to let them be a part of my path and my journey, and part of who I am. So um, it's kind of a fun exploration, even when there's meaning and purpose in my life, then there's no part of me that isn't allowed to be there. It's all just part of it. So
Thank you. Thank you for sharing those beautiful feelings and advice. And if we could help one person today start healing. We did a great job. So thank you to all our panelists for joining. Thank you to our audience. And bye, everyone. Have a beautiful Sunday.